Hey everybody, thank you for tuning in and welcome back to CITAM Church Online. My name is Joyce Omondi Waihiga, and this week I want to share 4 ways to deal with life's challenges. Let's get started. So last week I shared about Queen Esther and how she understood that God had placed her in position as queen for a purpose, his purpose, how she seized the moment and acted. And basically what I was trying to challenge us is to see that we are blessed to be a blessing. If you haven't watched that episode, be sure to check it out after this one. Today, I want to look at the same portion of scripture, Esther chapter 4, but from a different lens. From Esther, there is actually a model to decision making, particularly when you're faced with difficult or dangerous situations or decisions that we can learn from her. And there's 4 things that we can do. The first is to calculate the cost. We see from Esther that she realized her life was at stake. From verse 10, we read in Esther chapter 4, "Then she instructed him to say to Mordecai, 'All the king's officials and the people of the royal provinces know that for any man or woman who approaches the king in the inner court without being summoned, the king has but one law, that he be put to death. The only exception to this is for the king to extend the gold scepter to him and spare his life. But 30 days have passed since I was called to go to the king.'" Now, perhaps your life isn't in danger. Hopefully you're not making those type of decisions. But I think what we're seeing from Esther is that it's important to calculate the cost of whatever is ahead of you. Sometimes we diminish what is required for the particular decision or action that is needed. I think we can tend to really underestimate what would be required of us financially, spiritually, mentally, physically, by the people around you. And so oftentimes you'll find that we get ourselves started on something, either an ambitious goal or some sort of aspiration, a dream that we've been desiring to work on. And all of those things are difficult in their own right. But we can tend to underestimate the cost. And what that does is it frustrates us. It causes us not to do our things excellently because we've planned it poorly. But we're seeing from Esther, even in this decision, that she was able to really process and understand, what is this going to cost me? And based on that understanding, she was able also then to decide if she is all in or nothing. You know, this wasn't like 50-50. You're either all in or nothing. And I think that's one of the most important lessons we can learn from her today as far as how to deal with difficult situations before us. The second thing is that she set her priorities straight. Set your priorities. Esther believed that the safety of the Jewish people was more important than her own life. And this is precisely what my message last week was all about, that we are blessed to be a blessing, that God's blessings in our lives are not just for us to hoard and to be boastful about, but that He is giving us our talents, our wealth, our knowledge, our wisdom, whatever it may be, as instruments for His purposes to serve His people. And you can read about that again in verse 12-4, but also check out my episode from last week for more. The third thing, the third way to deal with difficult situations is to prepare. Esther gathered her support and she fasted. Let's read from verse 15. It says, "Then Esther sent this reply to Mordecai, 'Go, gather together all the Jews who are in Susa and fast for me. Do not eat or drink for 3 days, night or day. I and my maids will fast as you do. When this is done, I will go to the king, even though it is against the law. And if I perish, I perish.'" That's verse 15 and 16. when you're faced with difficult situations, are you preparing? Are you actually planning? Are you either setting aside a budget? Are you doing your research? Are you asking the right questions so that you can get the right answer? How are you preparing for what it is you would like to do? For example, I sing, right? I'm a gospel minister, and I can't just show up somewhere and grab a mic. I mean, I could, but I want to give my best, and my best requires hours upon hours of practice. So, I'm putting in the time there to prepare for something. So you need to think of it in the same way, whether it's your business. Are you understanding what your market requires? If you're in school, are you putting in the hours to read and to study so that you can go about that difficult course with that difficult situation the best way you possibly could? Prepare. And actually, let me just add on to this point by saying, I think sometimes as Christians we fail to do this part because we say, we just say, I'm just putting my faith in God, and God is going to sort it out. And almost we take that as license to just kind of sit back and fold our arms and say, God is the one working it out, and we don't play our part. But remember, faith without works is dead. I believe that God has, as much as I am doing my bit, I am doing it knowing that He is faithful to do His bit. But that isn't license for me to just not do anything, okay? And then the fourth thing that we can learn from Esther, as far as how to deal or approach a dangerous or difficult task or situation, is to determine a course of action and move ahead boldly. Move ahead boldly and with courage. Esther didn't think too long about what she was going to do, about her decision to go and see the king. She didn't give herself, hours or days or weeks to start then self-doubting herself and to start talking herself out of it. Anything that would lessen her commitment to what she was about to do and what she knew she needed to do. And so we actually see that in verse 17, it says, Mordecai went away and carried out all of Esther's instructions. And on the third day, this is chapter 5, verse 1, Esther put on her royal robes and stood in the inner court of the palace in front of the king's hall. This was straight after she was done with the prayer and fasting for 3 days. She was ready to go. She put on her outfit and went and stood there, ready to hear whatever her fate would be. So I think, and often this is where a lot of us can tend to get stuck as well. I call myself a recovering perfectionist because I can try. Maybe I'll do the preparing step. I know how to count the cost because I'll list all the things that could possibly go wrong, and to prepare and set what is my priority. But then now sometimes just that courage to just do that extra nudge and actually go ahead and start tends to be very difficult for me sometimes. But from Esther we see that she was bold and she was courageous. And this is one of the things that I'm really trying to learn this year, to just be a brave new woman. And so this is kind of just a challenge to all of us to really set our minds forward, to trust God for the outcome, but to do our part as well in showing Him, Lord, I'm here, and my hope, my dependence, my reliance is completely in you. So to sum it all up, what I'm trying to say here today is that when we face challenges in life, we need to seek to understand what God would want us to do and how He would want us to do it, by calculating the cost, setting our priorities, and preparing, but then also trusting Him to lead us through it and to be confident that He will be faithful in carrying us through. That is how we determine that course of action, and we set about going straight into doing it boldly, with the boldness of God and not of ourselves. So I hope that you're able to take away something from this today. These 4 steps, I think they're, at least straightforward, maybe not as easy to apply in life, but useful nonetheless. I'd love to hear what you think. Let me know in the comments at Joyce Omondi on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. You can also reach out to us at CITAM Church Online on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We'd be more than happy to hear from you. Until next time, would you have yourselves a wonderful week. God bless.